it out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I wonder how gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 603rd edition of Energy Week with George Harvey and Nancy Wolf, who is not here again. Today is the 12th of December. So Energy Week is starting on the 5th of December, which is a week ago today. Energy Week is a show that is based on my blog, geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com, which you can go to follow the articles that I'm talking about here. You can also go down on the description if you've got it available and find a link to just the articles in this show. The articles will be organized by date. They'll have a synopsis, which I read for the show, and a link to the original article so that you can actually get to it. And that's true of whether you get it from the blog, where you can get to it by clicking on the calendar for the correct date, or by going to the website that is below in the description, at the end of the description. So I'm going to start with a piece that is from Renews, and pardon me if I don't pronounce the Irish name correctly, but I'm going to pronounce it one way or the other. Irish partners outline 72 megawatt polyphasy plan. That's the title from Renews. Future Energy, Ireland, and ART Generation have outlined plans for the 72 megawatt polyphasy wind farm in Southern Ireland, the partners' second joint development. They are planning the project in County Kilkenny. I knew somebody from there. She said it should always be called Kilkenny, where the cats come from. I'm not sure why. As reported in October, the site is expected to feature up to 10 turbines. And this is just more of renewable energy being put up in Ireland. Ireland was getting off to a slow start. So there were people who were worried that it would just not develop quickly enough, and as a result of that would be significantly fined by the European Union. But I'm not sure what the status of that is, but I've seen a lot of activity in Ireland. So the next item here, we have a picture of a bird nest. And this is a scrub jay nest. And the article is from ABC News. It is titled, "How Climate Change is Impacting This Iconic Florida Bird Species." Populations of the Florida scrub jay, a bird found only in Florida, have been declining significantly since researchers began studying them in 1969. With warmer temperatures, it seems that snake have more time during the spring season to feed on the nests. I know that it doesn't sound likely, but snakes do climb trees sometimes. And I've actually seen them climbing posts in a barn. The posts that the barn holds the roof up and so forth, and the snake just goes around the post and takes its time, but it gets up there. They're probably after birds' nests. They like to eat eggs. And the Florida scrub jay actually looks like a blue jay, but it's not so brightly colored. It's rather dusty looking. But it is called a scrub jay because it lives in a territory in Florida called the scrub. And it happens that the scrub in Florida is declining in size, let me put it that way, because developers are going in and developing it for housing, for businesses, for whatever. So the area that is available for the birds to nest in is declining. This is typical of many species of birds that are in trouble, partly because of climate change. They're in trouble because of climate change and other things. So I'm going to go on. The next item is from Clean Technica. This is the Allen Steam Station. You can tell, by the way, looking at this, for a couple of reasons, that it is a coal-burning power plant. One of the reasons is that, and it looks like it may have been at least partly converted to natural gas, that very thick smokestack, which is just to the left of the middle, it looks like it's got a scrubber in it, which would scrub materials out of smoke from coal. The other thing that makes this look like a coal burning plant is the angled device coming up on the right, which is probably a conveyor system for conveying coal into the plant itself. The coal, as it burns, would not go up the 5 smokestacks there because they don't have scrubbers. I think they may have scrubbers that I'm not familiar with, but that's the reason I think this might be natural gas. This article comes from Clean Technica. The title is Duke Energy will replace a coal generation station with battery storage. Duke Energy may have seen the light on renewable energy at last. It will demolish the coal-fired Allen Steam Station west of Charlotte, North Carolina, that has been generating electricity since 1957. It will replace the plant partly with a 50 megawatt, 200 megawatt hour battery. I want to explain something here, and that is we have baseload power, which is generally speaking coal, natural gas, nuclear, things like that. It's called baseload because it's intended to provide the base load. The base load for power plants is, or anything else, is the minimum load, not the maximum, the minimum load that could be expected to be the minimum demand that could be expected on the grid during a period of time. And for a base load plant, that's the minimum load during its lifetime. I believe it might be the minimum load during a year, but that wouldn't be as useful. The point is, the reason they do that is because by doing that, you can eliminate the use of all the bells and whistles that regulate the plant to change its output, which would be done rather slowly, by the way. It would take place over minutes at the fastest. This means that aside from the base load, any additional load has to be covered by something else. And that something else would be something that can follow the load, which means the base load power might be coming in at 4.5 cents per kilowatt hour wholesale or 6 cents per kilowatt hour wholesale. The load following plants might be double that. Peaking plants might be even double that. This gets expensive, and it gets expensive very quickly every day. Now, renewable energy is constantly changing, but the demand on the grid is constantly changing. So renewable energy's window doesn't always blow, the sun doesn't always shine problem is really just the flip side of a coin that you don't hear people talk about, which is the baseload power plants are very rigid. they don't have flexibility, and that costs money every day. So I'm gonna go on to the next article. It's December 6th, and we have a picture of a ship here and a bunch of things that look like buoys out in the ocean. This article is from Clean Technica. The title of the article is "Purpose-Built Ship Deploys Wave Energy to Produce Green Ammonia Fuel." Instead of putting an ammonia plant on land, the Dutch startup switched to, I'm guessing that's the way it's pronounced, plans theirs out at sea. Initially, the plan is to use offshore wind and solar to make green hydrogen, which would be used to make green ammonia fuel. Ammonia is nitrogen with hydrogen, NH3. Now Switch 2 is planning on adding wave energy as an energy source. Now, this makes sense if you think about it. If you've got a way to harvest energy at sea, to use that energy on a ship to make ammonia, which can be used as a fuel for ships that might visit going by, this would mean that you could have convenient places for a ship to stop at sea to be refueled. And that's something to kind of think about. For the life of me, I cannot understand what's going on that ship. It looks like a very big version of a car carrying trailer in a tractor trailer on the road, with lots of stuff on it. But that is infrastructure for making ammonia out of hydrogen and nitrogen that's in the air. The air is about 79% ammonia. Nitrogen. And if you have a way to make hydrogen, you can combine that with a nitrogen to make ammonia. And ammonia is a much denser fuel source in terms of the amount of hydrogen per cubic foot, whatever, volume. Hydrogen is normally stored as a gas. Liquid hydrogen boils at an extremely low temperature. So it's very hard to keep it. Okay, I'm going to go on, and we have an article here from India Today. The picture is just a picture of a tractor going through a farm field. I think that's a rice field, but I may be wrong about that. The title of the article is "Climate Change Threatens Global Food Supply. Scientists Sound Alarm." Scientists are raising alarms about impacts of climate change on global food security. A study published in Trends in Plant Science points to the urgent need to develop climate-resistant crops to avert severe food shortages, famine, mass migration, and global instability. Now, one of the things that I should mention here, and this is something that's stressed in the article, is that agriculture is both a victim of and a contributor to climate change. I think most of us are familiar with cows burping. Cows, the stomach in the cow that breaks up cellulose so it can digest grass easily peels off methane, and the cow just burps methane constantly. Very resonant burp. But the fact is that climate change is messing up agriculture too. The coffee farmers, for example, find that they have to move higher up on mountains to grow coffee because the coffee that they're growing is of inferior quality. And this has been going on for years, as a matter of fact. And the price of coffee is going up very fast. And I find myself, actually, I buy, over the internet, I buy coffee and chicory together because chicory is relatively cheap. But I'm kind of at odds with my own practice there because I want coffee that's organic. The organic coffee has not been exposed to pesticides, and the fact that it has not been exposed to pesticides means that it has been exposed to pests. And its response to being exposed to pests is to create chemical compounds in the coffee that are toxic to pests. And it happens that those chemical compounds are not toxic to human beings, but they help our ability to regulate things like cancer. I'm told by a doctor, not my personal doctor, just a doctor I know of. And that, when I found that out, it struck me that there are reasons why organic vegetables and so forth are superior that I had never thought of. It's not just that organic vegetables, for example, don't have pesticides on them or fungicides on them or, insecticides, various things that kill us if we get too much of them. It's that they have things in them that are beneficial because they were naturally grown. So I'm going to go on to the next article, which comes from Clean Technica. And this is the picture of the ACE recycling plant. And these are reactors of some kind. I used to operate chemical reactors, and they actually looked a bit like these things. I had a job in a chemical factory where I did a lot of stuff, and I had to know the location and use of 1,250 switches and 1,750 valves. And they were pretty easy to remember because there were about 20 valves on a reactor, and every reactor was identical. So anyway, this is from Clean Technica. The title is ACE Green Recycling Becomes a Public Company Leading on Sustainable Battery Recycling. Now, if you want to know about battery recycling, here it is. As a global leader in battery recycling technology, ACE Green Recycling has a modular battery recycling platform intended to reduce battery waste while it preserves the battery materials of strategic relevance. Now ACE is going public. What does it mean to go public? It means that they are becoming a company with stock that is publicly traded instead of belonging to some other company or some group of people. This is a company that you can buy stock in, you can sell stock in, and so forth. ACE is interesting because it recycles lithium-ion batteries, and it also recycles lead batteries. So, but the important thing, a lot of companies have recycled lead-acid batteries for a long time. Lithium-ion batteries have been a tougher nut to crack because they are newer in design. So new systems had to be developed to recycle them. Okay, we're up to Saturday, December 7th. And here we have an article from Clean Technica. The title of the article is USA's largest solar plus storage project approved. Emissions-free electricity for 800,000 homes. Sunstone Solar, the U.S. largest proposed solar project, has final discretionary permission from the Oregon Energy Facility Siting Council. It brings owner Pine Gate Renewables close to developing the project's 1.2 gigawatts of solar PVs and 1.2 gigawatts of storage. Now, 1.2 gigawatts of solar PVs is a very big multiple of the 5 megawatts that we have at the landfill, the Brattleboro landfill, which was partly covered with a solar system. And the reason why that image is used, let me put it up again. The reason why that image is used is because it happens that the image is firefighters cleaning up after a fire. And you can see that this fire did not get very much out of control, because these are evergreen trees that would have burned like matchsticks if it had been a fire that was tall. But apparently even the lower branches didn't suffer. But the firefighters are making sure there's no hot spots left. When I was a kid, there was a fire, as I recall, there was a fire that happened in a house in Northfield, Massachusetts, not very far from where I lived in Winchester, New Hampshire. And it was determined that the fire didn't break out in the house. It came up from underground to get into the house. And it apparently had started burning about a year earlier in a barn or something about 100 yards away. And when the firefighters put that fire out, they didn't realize that the fire had gone underground. And it traveled underground, slowly burning for a year, and came up under the house. This is something that firefighters have to worry about. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next story, which comes from PV Magazine USA. And we have a Next Amp solar project. The story is about a Next Amp solar project. It might be the same one. It's not, I'm sorry. Next Amp is to bring 350 megawatts of distributed solar power generation to Illinois and New York. This could be one of those that it's bringing along, but it's a representative photograph, I believe. The synopsis says Next Amp announced it has partnered with Fuyo General Lease USA to deploy more than 350 megawatts of distributed solar power generation projects in Illinois and New York, bringing both states closer to their goals for carbon-free power. And I can't say that, I don't know. Solar systems out in the countryside don't bother me that much. Cornfields do. I grew up, when I was young, I spent years living in Illinois in 3 different locations, none of which was farther than a walk from cornfields. And I learned a lot about cornfields. Corn is one of 3 crops that are the hardest crops on the land, the other 2 being cotton and tobacco. And but corn today, it wasn't this way when I was a kid, but corn today is sprayed with fungicides, insecticides, various other pesticides, and the result of that is that the land and it is almost all GMO, because it's got the what is that called? The product that is they use GMO corn for, but it's Roundup. Basically, the soil under corn is toxic, which is why nothing grows there except corn. They want it to be toxic to everything except corn, and that means that you've got poisons running off the fields in rainstorms and things like that. It's not what I would call a good approach to raising crops. Okay, let's escape that. Nice picture here. This is from ABP Daily. I believe that's an Alberta publication. I might be wrong. The title is New Regulations to Protect Alberta's Agricultural Lands and Environment. And of course, the picture there is a picture of a picturesque part of Alberta. Over the past decade, Alberta has seen rapid growth of its renewable energy sector. However, the regulations governing this have not kept pace with development, leading to concerns from municipalities, agricultural producers, and landowners, so the government has had to act. This is a story that has been repeated in a bunch of places over and over again. I see this constantly in California. Solar power has gone into to the point where the state has to act. The same is true of other states, other things. It's a matter of change. If you've got change, you've got to change more than the thing. You've also got to change regulations that might be needed for it. Do you want to have solar panels put in or wind turbines put in without regulation? Do you want to have batteries put in without regulation? One of the problems that got us into the ecological situation that we are in, the ecological problem situation that we're in, has been the idea that if somebody owns a piece of property, he can do anything he wants with it. And that includes spill things on it, waste it. And this is not true, really. I have read about people who have run into trouble because they've allowed other people to dump tires on their property, and sometimes the number of tires becomes so great that they become a hazard, or they catch fire. So, you know, this is something that we have to regulate. Okay, we are up to Sunday, December 8th, and we have an article from Clean Technica. The title is Renewable Energy on Rails Scheme is to Cure Transmission Line Blues. If you look at that thing that says Suntrain, and you look at the undercarriage, you'll see that it's riding on a rail track. It is on a rail track, but it's on a rail truck. You can see the rail truck there. And let me read the synopsis. If you're thinking some clever soul has proposed loading large batteries onto freight cars, stuffing them full of renewable energy, and shipping them out to energy-thirsty locations, run right out and buy yourself a cigar. That doesn't appeal to me. The U.S. startup Suntrain is doing just that. Okay, somebody at Suntrain has figured out that they can put a battery on a freight car, and they can charge that battery in one location, run the freight car to another location, and avoid the necessary use of transmission lines. This really doesn't surprise me. I think it doesn't surprise me. I don't expect a company like this to make a lot of money, though, because transmission is cheap. Electric transmission is cheap, and if you've got the transmission lines and they are not loaded for use, that would be a cheaper way to do it. Now, in an emergency, this may be something that would really be good. I wonder where it's going to go. Okay, we are up to an article from Clean Technica. Let me put this up. This is a picture of a Volkswagen plant with a car that's being manufactured. The title of the article is European auto industry turmoil at Volkswagen and Stellantis, likely to accelerate in 2025. The European auto industry is facing a, quote, perfect storm, end quote, in 2025. Analysts predict a tumultuous year for both Volkswagen and Stellantis as declining sales, increasing emissions restrictions, and labor unrest beset the companies. It's interesting to me that this is happening at a moment when a number of car companies are really cashing in, increasing sales, in some cases over 100% in 1 year. Those car companies are mostly in China, and they're mostly selling electric vehicles in China. And if you're as old as I am, I'm approaching 80, I'm 78 actually. If you're 78 years old and you think of people in China, you might think of people in hand-woven straw hats that are conical, standing out in rice paddies in the water, planting rice. That's not China. I'm sure things like that happen in China, but it's not China. It may have been China when I was a kid, but it is not China. China is taking up slack that the United States has refused to take up for itself. And the result of that is the Chinese have almost cornered the bus market, because over half of the buses sold worldwide are electric. And most of them, almost all of them, are being sold somewhere other than the United States. Almost all of them are being made somewhere other than the United States. And the same thing is happening with cars. And, Tesla's got an electric car made in the United States. But for whatever reason, Tesla sales are down right now, and sales of Chinese cars are up. And that's the same for a whole lot of things that are made in China. And trying to reclaim the past by pumping oil and drilling for natural gas is not going to reclaim America's greatness. Okay, we're up to an article. I think this is a rather pretty picture. This is from the Deccan Chronicle. The title is Madhya Pradesh renewable energy output grows 14 times. And this is according to C.M. Mohan. Power generation from the renewable sources in Madhya Pradesh increased by 14 times to 7,000 megawatts in the last 12 years. So in 12 years, it went from 500 to 7,000. The feat is part of the move to generate clean energy to combat the challenge of climate change, and this is according to the Chief Minister, Mohan Yadav. I guess that says what has to be said about that article. We are up to Monday, December 9th, and we have a picture. I've always liked pictures of clouds above the water. I don't know why. There's something very beautiful about clouds over the ocean or whatever. This is from a publication called the Digital Journal, and the title is 2024 Certain to be the Hottest Year on Record. And this is according to the European Union Monitor. This year is, quote, effectively certain, end quote, to be the hottest on record and the first above a critical threshold to protect the planet from dangerously overheating, according to Copernicus Climate Change Service. We have exceeded 1.5 degrees Celsius of temperature increase. Scientists said we would need to avoid that. And I think this year will not be quite as hot as, this coming year will not be quite as hot as this year is. And the reason is because 2024 was largely a year that happened during an El Nino, which is generally a little bit warmer than La Nina years. Nevertheless, we have not started to reduce the emissions of greenhouse gases, let alone stop them. And climate change is going to continue to get worse, even if we stop greenhouse gases, because it takes time for those gases to add heat. So we have to start removing them. We are years from doing that, unless something very strange happens. Okay, I want to go on, and this particular picture, this is a picture of Arizona, and this article is from Clean Technica. The title is Arizona Looks for More Power. Population growth and rising temperatures are starting to not be the only thing upping power demand in Arizona. Large manufacturing companies are looking to build or expand in the state, and large data centers are also considering building in the Phoenix metro area. So finding more kilowatt hours is key. And when I think of that picture, I think of Arizona Highways, which is an extremely fine, very beautiful magazine, and people have shown it to me on a bunch of occasions. And every time I see it, I think to myself, that is incredibly beautiful. I'm really glad I'm not there. And the first time I said that, somebody looked at me with a very puzzled look on his face and said, "What?" Well, I don't like heat, and I don't like excessive sunshine. I burn too easily, so that's why. But it is something that, I like to. I like the idea. I like beautiful places, but for me, a beautiful place was a place that I lived in, Winchester, New Hampshire, where I was on very nearly the top of a mountain, and I could look down the Connecticut River in the morning and see mile after mile after mile of fog seen from above as the sun goes up. I don't know what's wrong with my throat. The sun comes up and it shines on that fog from above, making it look like the biggest down comforter in the world. It just goes on and on and on for miles and miles. And I like green trees, and I like streams running, and I like a lot of things, but I'm not attracted to desert. As beautiful as that picture is, it's not something that I go for personally. So let's go on. I've got another picture, which I'll start with a comment on the picture. This picture is a picture of batteries, and it reminds me of a poster I saw many years ago. The time when I saw the poster makes me think that it's just possible that it was a poster showing Cameron Diaz as a girl who might have been 16 or 18 years old. It was a poster with a white background of a young woman who was dressed in white. And they might have taken the picture in very bright lights. Her hair was almost white. Her blonde hair was about as light blonde as you could get. Her complexion was very light. And the picture almost looked like a white rectangle hanging on the wall until you focused your eyes on it. And then you realized there was a very beautiful young woman in that picture. Now, that is what this reminds me of. Not that it reminds me of a very beautiful young woman, but it does remind me of white on white. This particular article is from Clean Technica, and the title is European Union to invest 1 billion euros to boost domestic supply of battery components. The European Union has announced that companies who source less of their important materials for their battery production from China will be in line for grants totaling 1 billion euros. Now this is grants that they would get for switching to European sources. The European Union also said it's interested in financing domestic hydrogen projects and net zero technologies. So the European Union is interested in pushing the net zero, the idea of net zero to people in order to continue foster a move away from fossil fuels. They have been profoundly interested in leaving fossil fuels because of the war in Ukraine, because their money spent on fossil fuels in the past had been going to Russia in exchange for oil, coal, and more than anything else, natural gas. That money was being used to pay for the war in Ukraine, and they wanted to stop doing that. So they started buying gas from Norway and the United States and other, oil, whatever, from other sources than Russia. And that had a profound effect on Russia, as a matter of fact. We are up to Tuesday, December 10th. And we have a chart here, a chart showing Florida energy in 2022 and Florida energy in 2032. And if you look at this, the large red area, slightly pinkish red area, is declining from 69.55% to 55.93%, which is a substantial reduction. And that reduction is very largely made up by switching to renewable energy, which is growing from 5.76% of the energy to 27.95% of the energy. This article is from Clean Technica. And the title is The Sunshine State Projected to Take Over as Top-Ranked Residential Solar State in 2028. This is obviously a projection. Florida has wide open skies and plenty of light. Unsurprisingly, Florida businesses and people continue to vote with their dollars in support of solar power. Florida installed the second most solar power capacity in the United States in 2024, only behind Texas. Rooftop solar and backyard solar, these are things that are kind of difficult to track. They do it by tracking the sales of small sales of solar panels. Large sales are going to be known because they're going to utility scale projects. But the smaller sales are how you track, and residential solar and business solar. The sales of solar power in Florida, well, actually, let me say this. Solar power has been the largest, has had the largest capacity of any power source being put online, I think for 13 months in a row, for a long time. And the data that supports that, which comes from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, does not include community solar, rooftop solar, backyard solar, any of that. It only includes things that are, in some cases, 1 megawatt and above, or in some cases 5 megawatts or above. And the result of that is that something like 98, 99% of the solar installations that are going in the United States are not counted by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, called FERC. That is about 30% of solar installations. About 30% of solar capacity that is being installed in something like 98% of the installations that are tiny. It's hard to keep track of this stuff, but a lot of solar is being installed in Florida. Okay, the next item that we have is from a publication called Rail Business Daily. And this is a GB Rail Freight Class 99 locomotive, which is on display, which is why there's a stairway going up to the cabin so people can go in, look like it, find out what it looks like inside. The title of the article is GB Rail Freight's Class 99 locomotives to run entirely on renewable fuel and electricity. GB Rail Freight, one of the UK's leading goods movers, announced that its latest locomotive, the Class 99, will operate solely on electricity and renewable fuels such as hydro-treated vegetable oil. The Class 99s are set to enter service in late 2025. This particular locomotive is the equivalent of a hybrid car. It has a diesel engine in it that is powered by vegetable oil. It also has electric motors that are powered, I believe, by battery. The diesel engine is not going to be powering the drive wheels directly, though. It's going to be producing electricity. It's going to be a generator producing electricity so that the battery doesn't get run down. Okay. Our next item comes from Renews. This is a picture of the Tamaga hydropower plant. And what you're looking at is in the foreground the reservoir, then the dam, and then the river running away. The title of the article is Iberdrola bags permit for 274 megawatt Portuguese wind project. Iberdrola received a production license from Portuguese Directorate General for Energy and Geology of Portugal for 274 megawatt wind project. The 350 million euro project will be linked to the existing Tamaga hydropower plant, which you see there, taking advantage of existing connections. So that's where we are on that. I think that's actually fairly obvious. When you have particularly when a nuclear power plant is shut down, like Vermont Yankee was, when a coal burning power plant is shut down, basically you have a place that electric lines go from, conducting electricity from. They can conduct electricity to that place too. So people who want to build battery systems, wind stations and so forth, very often want to use those electric lines because they're already there and they are expensive. So we are up to Wednesday, December 11th, and we have a picture of some gentlemen building a solar farm. This article comes from Canary Media. The title is Google Plans to Build Gigawatts of Clean Power and Data Centers Together. This, by the way, is what I would say might be the most important article of this week, and I will explain that. The synopsis says big tech companies need huge amounts of clean energy for their rapidly growing data center fleets while meeting climate goals. The grid cannot provide what they need. They need a lot of electricity, and it's just not there. Google plans to spend $20 billion to build data centers close to solar, wind, and battery farms. We've been hearing a lot about nuclear power plants being kept open rather than allowed to close, reopened in one case in this country, and organizations wanting to build nuclear power plants in order to provide electricity to data centers. And frankly, the idea of building a nuclear power plant for a data center is something that I'm sorry, I can't feel happy about that. But apparently Google has, the people who are operating Google have done some work that other companies of their types have not done, which is to go a little bit past the intuitively obvious fact, and I'm going to put fact in quotes because it's not a fact, that they need nuclear power or something like it in order to keep a plant open, because the sun doesn't always shine and the moon doesn't always blow, or whatever it is. The thing that I think Google did was they sat down and said, how much does it cost to build a nuclear power plant? And how long does it take? And how quickly do we need electricity? And the fact is, they need electricity now. But building a nuclear power plant, even if it's a small modular reactor, is going to take years. The factory for the small modular reactor has yet to be built. So it's going to take years before any number of small modular reactors can be put out in the field. They need electricity now, but they can get near-firm solar and near-firm wind, which are, in the words of NextEra Energy, at least as reliable as nuclear for dispatching energy on demand during peak demand periods. And so what should they do? Well, if they really want electricity now, the smart thing to do is to put up solar and wind that is near firm, because the electricity from such things costs about a third of what it would cost, maybe less, of what it would cost from a nuclear power plant. NextEra Energy, which is the largest electric utility in the United States, and the owner, by the way, of 6 or 7 nuclear power plants, including Seabrook, has said it's not putting any money into nuclear. That was 2 years ago. Now they're putting money into keeping a nuclear station open, because once a nuclear power plant has been paid down, it provides inexpensive electricity. But the fact is, near-firm solar and near-firm wind is still competitive with cheap nuclear. They are, according to NextEra Energy, either of those options will cost less than 4 cents per kilowatt hour, but nuclear is going to cost upwards of 10.5. So why would you pay 10.5 to 14 cents per kilowatt hour when you can get electricity for 4 or less? Okay, let's go on. The next item is from PV Magazine USA. This is a nice article. This is a picture of a rooftop solar system in Boston. And the title of the article is "Boston Doctors Prescribe Solar Energy." The Boston Medical Center Health System has begun its Clean Power Prescription program to offer bill savings to patients who may struggle to pay for electricity during recovery. The pilot program enables the hospital's providers, which I imagine means doctors and nurses, to write patients' prescriptions for renewable energy reducing their bills. So what they've got here is a way to, they've put up rooftop solar, and they're putting up more, and they are saving on their electric bills. That is to say, the Boston Medical Center health system. But they have more going in, and that more that is going in is paying for the medical bills of people who don't have money to pay for medical bills. I'm sorry, it's paying for electricity bills for people who don't have money to pay for electricity bills because they have been dealing with a medical problem. And this, I think, is a really nice, it's a nice story. So I'm going to go on to the last picture. And the last picture is a fish-friendly water turbine. Who'd have thought of such a thing? Well, that turbine looks to me like it's probably an Archimedes screw turbine. And if an Archimedes screw turbine is built for fish to go through without being damaged, the fish can go through it without being damaged, regardless of whether it's generating electricity by allowing water to flow downhill, or it's pumping water uphill. The fish will go through without being damaged. And I'm not going to explain that, but it's not like, this is not like a turbine that looks like a fan. This is a different kind of thing. This article is from Clean Technica. The title of the article is Dam Removal Revitalizes Salmon in Win for Native Tribes. Okay, it's only been a month since the project on the Klamath River, in which 4 dams were removed. Now the salmon are returning. These dams impeded fish migrations for almost a century, but since they came down, the salmon are swimming up the river to spawn. It is a benefit for native tribes. Why is it a benefit? Well, when the dams were built, it was damaging to native tribes because their way of life depended on access to salmon. When the salmon were running up the river, they would go catch salmon, and they would preserve the salmon by drying it, possibly by smoking it. Gave them a lot of protein, and they did well. And then somebody came in and said, it's more important that we have electricity than that you have food. I don't know what to make of that. It just sounds like an evil thing. Anyway, they're getting their salmon back, and I hope they do well with it. Okay, I'm going to the last slide here, and the last slide says, have an amazingly tranquil week. I almost put in have an astonishingly tranquil week. The idea of being amazed or astonished leading to tranquility, or tranquility leading to astonishment, just strikes me as being kind of fun. Anyway, I'm going to say goodbye for the week. I hope you come back next time, and I hope you have enjoyed this show. And I can't see you, but you can see me. Just come back and do it. Bye-bye.